Good evening. Tonight we're following rapidly developing events overseas, a crisis now entering one of its most dangerous periods. As winter tightens its grip across Eastern Europe, Russia has launched what military analysts are calling its most aggressive and coordinated winter assault since the conflict began. Officials warn this campaign is designed not simply to advance on the battlefield, but to freeze a nation into submission. Over the past 72 hours, the world has watched a devastating new strategy unfold, a sweeping series of strikes targeting energy systems, heating facilities, power grids, and communication networks across Ukraine, all while temperatures plunge far below freezing. Millions of people are now facing nights without electricity, without reliable heat, and in some regions without running water. And we're told the worst of the winter is still ahead. Tonight, we take you through what we know, how this assault is being carried out, what the impact has been on Ukrainian civilians and military forces alike, and how this dangerous new phase threatens to reshape the trajectory of the conflict in the weeks ahead. Let's begin with what military officials are calling Wave 1. Just before dawn 2 days ago, as temperatures across Ukraine hovered around -10 degrees, the first reports began coming in, a swarm of fast-moving drones. Flying low to evade early detection approached several major Ukrainian cities. Witnesses described hearing a faint buzzing, then sudden, blinding flashes in the sky. Ukrainian emergency officials say the drones struck energy substations and heat distribution centers, triggering automatic shutdown systems and plunging entire districts into darkness. These were not random targets. Officials say the locations hit were critical hubs, points in the grid designed to stabilize electrical flow during peak usage. By hitting those nodes at once, Russia triggered what engineers call a cascading disconnect, a domino effect that multiplied the blackout far beyond the initial damage. Within the first hour, more than 1 million people across central Ukraine were without power. By the end of the night, that number had more than doubled. Engineers worked through the cold to reroute electrical flow, but every reroute requires energy, and the country's energy reserves, already stretched thin, were not designed for a winter of constant bombardment. And on that first night, Ukraine had no chance to recover before Wave 2. Just after midnight the following evening, Ukraine faced a new threat in the darkness. Radar systems picked up incoming signatures from the east. This time, not drones, but missiles, long-range, high-speed, and designed to overwhelm defenses. Officials say that during a stretch of less than 30 minutes, dozens of missiles were launched in tightly grouped sequences, a tactic intended to punch through interception lines and hit multiple targets simultaneously. And according to Ukrainian defense leaders, several did break through. The result, more fires, more damage to infrastructure, and more communities shivering in the winter night. Emergency crews rushed from one impact site to the next, putting out fires while trying to restore basic services. Many of the facilities that were hit, transformers, power junctions, and heating units, take days, sometimes weeks, to repair. Engineers say that even when they can restore power, the grid remains extremely fragile. One strike can wipe out days of work, and tonight Ukrainian officials say the third wave may be the most dangerous yet. Military commanders across Europe have long noted that winter changes the mechanics of war. As the ground freezes, heavy vehicles that once bogged down in mud can move more freely. This opens pathways that were impassable just weeks before. Tonight, there are growing concerns that Russia is preparing to use the frozen terrain to intensify its ground assault. Satellite images indicate increasing movement of armor and artillery systems in several key areas along the front. Ukrainian defensive units, exhausted from months of fighting, now face a new challenge: the cold itself. Soldiers on both sides operate in sub-zero temperatures, their gear stiffening in the frigid air, their nights marked by frostbite risks and limited visibility. Commanders warn that prolonged exposure to this environment impacts not just morale, but speed, communication, and decision-making. Winter has become not a backdrop, but a weapon, and Russia appears committed to exploiting every degree drop. But tonight, the greatest toll is not on the front lines. It's on the millions of civilians now struggling to navigate daily life without consistent access to electricity or heat. Parents throughout Ukraine are bundling their children in multiple layers just to sleep through the night. Elderly residents alone in high-rise apartments rely on candles and improvised stoves to stay warm. With power knocked out, elevators stop running, taps run cold, and groceries perish in refrigerators that no longer work. Local authorities warn that prolonged exposure to this kind of cold can be life-threatening. In some regions, emergency warming shelters have been established, makeshift spaces where families can gather to warm themselves, charge phones, and connect with loved ones. But those shelters, too, face limitations. Generators need fuel, heaters need maintenance, and supplies are finite. As one official put it earlier today, this winter, power is life. And tonight, for many, that life is flickering. In the face of this deepening crisis, Ukraine remains determined to defend its infrastructure and restore services wherever possible. Crews are working around the clock. In many cases, those crews drive directly into areas that have just been hit, knowing more strikes could follow. Engineers describe their work as a race against time, repairing lines before the next wave arrives, patching transformers with whatever materials can be sourced, and rerouting power in ways the system was never designed to handle. Ukrainian officials say they're prioritizing hospitals, emergency shelters, and critical pumping stations. In some cases, that means entire neighborhoods remain without light so that operating rooms can function. The resilience of the country's repair teams has drawn widespread attention. Across the nation, they are often seen as heroes, risking their lives, braving the elements, refusing to abandon their posts, even when the temperature falls well below freezing. But they cannot restore what does not exist. Replacement parts are in short supply, and many facilities have already been struck multiple times. Tonight, Ukrainian officials warn that if strikes continue at this pace, the grid may reach what they call structural exhaustion, a point where repairs take significantly longer and outages become increasingly difficult to contain. Alongside the physical assault, there's another battle unfolding: the information war. Both sides are releasing statements and images intended to influence global opinion. And tonight, analysts say this winter campaign appears timed not only for tactical advantage, but psychological impact. Russia's strategy, according to many observers, is clear: to demonstrate that Ukraine cannot protect its own infrastructure during the harshest months of the year, and to pressure Ukrainian civilians into questioning how long they can withstand such attacks. Ukraine, for its part, continues to emphasize unity and resilience. Officials are urging citizens to stay vigilant, conserve power where possible, and rely on community networks whenever outages occur. As with any conflict, information becomes both shield and weapon, and tonight both are deployed at full force. Behind all the strategy and analysis are the human stories unfolding in real time. Children attempting to continue their studies in cold apartments, writing homework by the light of battery-powered lamps, parents lining up for hours to refill water containers, doctors performing procedures in clinics powered by portable generators, knowing that fuel supply depends on steady deliveries that weather and war can disrupt at any moment. Across the country, local officials are trying to ensure vulnerable populations, especially the elderly, are checked on regularly. In many cases, volunteers go door to door carrying blankets, portable heaters, and thermoses of hot tea. Some residents open their homes to neighbors whose buildings have gone dark, forming small pockets of warmth amid widespread cold. Families torn apart by displacement now face an added burden, finding safe heated shelter as the temperatures drop even further. And tonight they face an uncertain horizon for those who have endured nearly 2 years of conflict. The winter brings not only cold, but the weight of fatigue, and yet remarkably, resolve remains unbroken. Military analysts warn that what we're seeing now may be only the beginning of a larger winter operation. Some believe Russia may escalate its missile and drone attacks, seeking to cripple key infrastructure for weeks at a time. Others suggest the winter terrain could pave the way for multiple ground offensives, strategically timed to exploit the frozen landscape. Ukraine, too, is preparing. Officials indicate new defensive systems are being installed to intercept incoming aerial threats. Troops are fortifying positions along the front, and local communities are stockpiling essential supplies: food, water, medicine, firewood, bracing for what could be the most difficult winter since the conflict's beginning. The coming weeks will likely determine much about the future of this war: whether Ukraine can maintain its energy systems, whether civilians can endure prolonged outages, and whether frontline units can hold their positions during some of the harshest weather on Earth. Around the world tonight, international leaders are watching closely. Humanitarian organizations are preparing additional shipments of generators, heaters, and warm clothing. Several nations have called emergency meetings to discuss how to support Ukraine through what could be a prolonged energy crisis. But no matter how much assistance arrives, the reality remains: the grid inside Ukraine must endure the strikes as they come, and winter does not pause for diplomacy. Officials warn that delays in aid, whether logistical or political, could have severe consequences on the ground in the days ahead. For Ukraine, every unit of power, every shipment of supplies, and every hour of restored electricity matters. Tonight, the international community faces a question that grows louder with each strike: can Ukraine's infrastructure survive the winter? As we close our coverage tonight, the global implications of this winter assault cannot be ignored. Energy markets feel the ripple effects. Neighboring countries remain on alert for potential spillover, whether through refugee movements, cyber attacks, or disruptions to regional power grids. Experts warn that the longer this winter assault continues, the more it will strain humanitarian networks, international alliances, and regional stability. It is not only a test for Ukraine, but for nations watching from afar, nations now confronted with the reality that winter warfare in the modern era reaches far beyond the battlefield. tonight as millions across Ukraine enter another night in the cold. Many face the most basic of questions. Will the power stay on? Will the heat return? Will tomorrow bring relief or another barrage? We will continue to follow every development in the days ahead, tracking the impact of this winter campaign and the extraordinary resilience of those enduring it. For now, we leave you with this: a nation bracing for yet another night of frigid temperatures, uncertain skies, and unwavering resolve